Racial Reckoning. George A. Romero's 1968 film, Night of the Living Dead, shocked viewers with devastating consequences. Ben, the film's most capable survivor, is shot and killed by police who mistake him for a zombie. Released during the Civil Rights Movement, the film positioned an African-American protagonist who survives the undead siege only to be murdered by authorities without warning. Critics also reacted strongly to a scene where Karen, a 9-year-old girl, kills her mother with a trowel and eats her father's arm on screen. This ending confused audiences because it rejected the usual heroic survival arc and instead mirrored real racial violence, forcing viewers to question whether the true horror was the zombies or the society that killed Ben. Nuclear Apocalypse. Return of the Living Dead from 1985 ends with a cruel twist that destroys any sense of victory. After the military nukes the entire town, the explosion's radiation spreads the zombie virus across the region instead of containing it. The toxic gas trioxin was accidentally released in Louisville, Kentucky on July 3, 1984. Zombies are shown eating brains because it hurts to be dead, and brains relieve that pain, while their body parts keep moving even when separated. A general assures his superiors the strike was successful with minimal casualties, unaware that nuclear fires have released trioxin again into the atmosphere, causing toxic rain that reanimates cemetery corpses for a second wave. This sudden reversal confused audiences because what looked like a decisive solution actually restarted the outbreak, turning government rescue into the cause of an even bigger disaster. Hidden Epilogue. Day of the Dead, from 1985, appears to end hopefully when survivors escape to a tropical island. George A. Romero later revealed in his book, The Living Dead, that this happy ending was completely false. Sarah, Bill McDermott, and John escape the underground facility by helicopter and fly to an apparent sanctuary. However, the epilogue reveals all three became zombies on the island, meaning their escape only delayed their fate. Romero's book shows their desire to return to normalcy was a fatal mistake that led directly to their transformation. This revelation confused audiences because it retroactively changed a hopeful film ending into a tragedy, making viewers realize the movie's apparent optimism was an illusion only corrected in outside material. Moral Inversion. I Am Legend from 2007 released with two very different endings that send opposite messages. In the theatrical release, Will Smith's Dr. Neville sacrifices himself with a grenade, saves Anna and Ethan, and secures the cure, presenting him as a selfless hero. In the alternate version, Neville discovers the Dark Seekers are an intelligent, organized society. The alpha male draws a butterfly symbol on glass while searching for his mate, and Neville realizes he is Legend, the monster to them, because they were attacking to rescue the captured alpha female he had been experimenting on. In this ending, Neville releases the female Darkseeker to her people, and the survivors escape to Vermont without a cure. Audiences were confused because the theatrical version frames Neville as humanity's savior, while the alternate ending reframes his actions as cruel, leaving viewers unsure which moral reading of the story is meant to be the real one. Sacrifice. Ambiguity. Train to Busan from 2016 unsettles viewers with an ending that is emotionally powerful but morally complicated. Sok-woo, an emotionally distant fund manager, agrees to take his daughter Suan on a train towards safety. The businessman Yeon-suk betrays other survivors repeatedly for personal self-preservation. Sok-woo is bitten during a fight with Yeon-suk while protecting Suan from danger, and knowing he will turn, he throws himself off the moving train to spare his daughter. His final moments show him remembering Suan as a baby, his face softening with paternal love as Suan and Sung-kyung eventually reach Busan alive. This conclusion confused audiences, because they could not easily decide whether Sok-woo's death is a tragic punishment for earlier selfishness, or a redemptive act that fully redeems him, leaving the emotional meaning of the sacrifice open to debate. Multiple endings. 28 Days Later, from 2002, adds confusion by existing in several different ending forms. The theatrical release shows Jim shot, the screen fading to black, then a caption over flashes of Selena performing CPR, before Jim wakes in bed as he and Selena and Hannah try to signal an aircraft. In alternate 1, Jim dies on the operating table, while Selena and Hannah desperately try to save him. Alternate 2 freezes on Jim's face as gunfire fades, leaving his fate unclear. Alternate 3, storyboarded but not filmed, shows Jim knocking out Frank and sacrificing his blood for a transfusion, before dying because the virus is too contagious. Viewers were confused because, depending on which version they saw or later heard about, Jim either survives, dies, or exists in an unresolved state, making it difficult to know which ending is canon and what the story ultimately wants to say about hope or despair. By the way, if you're enjoying this, I post content like this regularly. Subscribing would really help me out. Tonal Whiplash. 28 years later, from 2025, as described in the script's premise, concludes its main emotional narrative before abruptly changing style. The film ends with Spike saying goodbye to his mother after their dramatic arc has resolved. The final scene then introduces Sir Jimmy Crystal and the Jimmy's gang, wearing platinum blonde wigs and tracksuits, performing exaggerated parkour while fighting zombies in a flashy, almost cartoonish style. The visuals and tone suddenly resemble a light-hearted action spectacle, rather than the grounded drama that came before. This jarring shift confused audiences because it undercuts the serious story they were invested in, and makes the ending feel disconnected, leaving viewers uncertain whether they were meant to take the finale as satire, fantasy, or sincere continuation. Impossible Transformation. Warm Bodies from 2013 challenges zombie rules with an ending built around romantic transformation. R is a zombie who speaks minimally and lives in an abandoned airport until he eats the brain of Julie's boyfriend Perry, absorbing his memories and romantic feelings. Spending time with Julie causes his heartbeat to return and his body to gradually warm, signaling a physical change back toward life. Humans initially reject the idea that a zombie could become human again, while Bonies, skeletal evolved zombies, hunt the pair as threats to their way of unlife. R eventually bleeds human blood after a fall, proving his transformation is real and not just symbolic. Many viewers were confused because traditional zombie stories treat infection as permanent, and this ending suggests love and emotion can literally cure zombification, blurring the line between horror rules and supernatural romance. Unresolved Ending. Shaun of the Dead from 2004 ends on a joke that grows darker the more viewers think about it. After surviving the outbreak, Shaun visits his shed, where his best friend Ed remains chained up as a zombie, and they go right back to playing video games together. A 6-month epilogue shows that society has integrated zombies into everyday life, with some used for labor or game shows. The shed scene implies Ed is permanently imprisoned, no longer fully human, but still being treated as casual company. Audiences found this confusing because the upbeat tone suggests a sweet, unchanged friendship, while the actual situation is morally disturbing, making it hard to tell whether the film wants them to feel comforted or unsettled by Shaun's decision. Inverted Values. Fido, from 2006, flips expectations about who the monsters really are in its final moments. In an alternate 1950s setting, radiation causes the dead to reanimate, and the ZomCon Corporation uses control collars to turn zombies into obedient workers. Young Timmy befriends a zombie named Fido as a pet and companion, and after Fido's collar malfunction leads to a neighbor's death, ZomCon moves to destroy him. Timmy and his mother Helen choose to protect Fido, openly rejecting ZomCon's authority and declaring their loyalty to him over societal rules. This resolution confused audiences because it asks them to cheer for humans aligning with a zombie while treating the corporate, human-led system as the true villain, reversing the usual assumption that the living are automatically on the right side. Ambiguous Infection. The Crazies, from 2010, closes with an unsettling suggestion about its supposed survivors. A bioweapon virus turns townspeople into violent, uncontrollable killers, and the military responds by killing civilians and ultimately destroying the town. Sheriff David and his wife Judy manage to escape in a semi-truck, surviving the explosion that wipes out Ogden Marsh. However, earlier in the film, David is stabbed in the hand by an infected person, leaving open the possibility that he has been exposed. The final satellite footage shows David and Judy heading toward another city as the words, "Initiate Containment Protocol," appear on screen. This made audiences uneasy and confused because the film never confirms whether David is infected, leaving them to wonder if the couple they rooted for are actually unknowingly carrying the virus into a new population. Entrapment Revelation. Resident Evil from 2002 ends by revealing that everything the characters struggled for may have been pointless. Most of the movie follows Alice and a team trying to escape the Hive, an underground facility where the T-virus was released, and the Red Queen AI has killed staff to contain it. After battling zombies and creatures like the Licker, Alice reaches the surface only to be captured by Umbrella scientists and restrained. She later wakes in a hospital, wanders outside, and discovers Raccoon City is already devastated, with streets empty and signs of widespread infection. This twist confused audiences because the plot had framed escape from the Hive as the main goal, but the final reveal shows that while they were fighting underground, the larger world was already collapsing, shifting the story's scale in the last moments. Language Infection. Pontypool, from 2008, bends expectations by treating language itself as the source of the zombie-like outbreak. The story takes place in a radio station where host Grant Mazzy and his team receive reports of people becoming violent after repeating certain English words. The infection spreads through understanding rather than bites or bodily fluids, with common terms like honey and kill becoming dangerous triggers. Grant discovers that changing the meaning of an infected word, such as redefining kill to mean kiss, can break its hold over a person. He and Sydney then broadcast these redefinitions in an attempt to cure listeners. This concept confused audiences because it replaces the familiar physical logic of zombie contagion with an abstract linguistic one, making the rules harder to grasp and leaving viewers debating whether the outbreak can truly be stopped by misunderstanding language. Body horror. Contracted from 2013 slowly reveals that its disturbing illness is part of a larger undead threat. Samantha, dealing with a recent breakup, drinks heavily at a party and experiences a blackout after being sexually assaulted by a man who has earlier been shown with a corpse. She initially believes she has contracted a sexually transmitted infection when symptoms like bleeding and rashes appear. As days pass, her body decays rapidly, with teeth falling out, eyes clouding, and skin necrotizing while she remains conscious. The final scenes show her fully transformed into a zombie-like creature, lashing out violently. Many viewers were confused because most of the film feels like a grounded body horror drama about trauma and sickness, and only at the end does it clearly reveal a zombie outbreak connection, forcing a late reinterpretation of what story they were watching. Mercy, Ambiguity. Maggie from 2015 focuses on a slow transformation and a family's inability to act, culminating in a quiet but haunting choice. The necroambulism virus progresses over weeks, giving infected people time to deteriorate mentally and physically. Maggie returns home after being bitten, and her father Wade is told that eventually he must send her to quarantine, allow authorities to execute her, or end her suffering himself. As Maggie declines, Wade keeps a shotgun nearby, but cannot bring himself to use it. In the end, Maggie climbs to the roof, envisions her mother from happier times, and jumps to her death before fully turning. Audiences found this confusing because the film never clearly labels her decision as hopeful, despairing, heroic, or tragic, leaving them to decide whether her final act is an assertion of control or a deeply sad surrender. Human threat. Train to Busan Peninsula from 2020 shifts fear away from zombies and onto desperate survivors. 4 years after the initial outbreak, Jung Seok and others return to the quarantined Korean peninsula to recover abandoned money, only to discover that Unit 631, a rogue military group, brutalizes survivors for entertainment. Prisoners are forced into arenas where they must face hordes of zombies, while soldiers watch and gamble. Min Jung and her children struggle to escape both the undead and these human predators, while Captain Seo ultimately chooses to save himself over others. His decision to jam a cargo ramp and unleash zombies onto a ship full of people seals their fate. This focus confused some viewers because the movie's climax feels more like a condemnation of human cruelty than a fight against zombies, making the supposed monsters seem secondary in their own genre. Alternate ending. Return of the Living Dead was originally planned to conclude very differently from the version audiences know. Early drafts envisioned a chemical explosion that killed all zombies and scientists, with at least one corpse staying dead to imply the outbreak was contained. Budget limits led to a rewrite that kept the story's structure but changed its resolution. In the finished film, the military nukes the town, and the resulting fires push trioxin-laced smoke into the atmosphere, leading to toxic rain that reanimates cemetery bodies elsewhere. Viewers who learned about the original concept were confused because the final nuclear ending feels drastically more hopeless, turning what could have been a contained horror story into an endless cycle and changing the film's tone from darkly comic survival to outright nihilism. Protagonist Misdirection. Army of the Dead from 2021 appears at first to be centered on Scott Ward, played by Dave Bautista, as he leads a team into zombie-infested Las Vegas for a heist. The story invests heavily in his backstory, guilt over killing his wife after she turned, and attempts to reconnect with his daughter Kate. During the climax, Scott is bitten and later dies after saying goodbye to Kate, who is left as the only major character to survive. By the end, it becomes clear that Kate's choices and perspective have quietly driven many of the emotional beats, including rescuing others and rejecting the heist's greed-driven logic. This structure confused audiences because the film sets up Scott as the main character whose arc will define the story, but ultimately, it is Kate's survival and moral stance that feel like the true endpoint, making viewers reassess who the real protagonist was. If you found this interesting, consider subscribing so you don't miss future uploads. Thanks for watching.